Hello and welcome to another episode of What Travis Says. My name is Travis. Let's talk about Doctor Who. More specifically, let's talk about the season finale, The Doctor Falls. Now I feel it goes without saying, if you've not watched the episode The Doctor Falls, do not watch this video, there will be spoilers. Alright, so everybody watching this video has already seen the episode because we have a lot to talk about. The Doctor falls, the Master falls, Missy falls, Cyber Bill falls. Quite literally at the end, just kerplunk. First things first, let's talk about the cyber elephant in the room. Bill retained some of her personality when she was upgraded. I mean, actually all of her personality. She didn't even realize that she had been upgraded into a Cyberman. She thought that everything was fine, that everyone was just acting really weird. Definitely not the route that a lot of people thought that the show was gonna go, including myself. I thought that Bill was pretty dead, and that the Doctor might have to use some wibbly-wobbly time travel in order to get her back, or do some sort of taking the electronics out of her body and piecing her back together. I felt like the Doctor's only two options were use time travel to save Bill before it even happened, or take her apart and put her back together again using pieces parts in some sort of Mary Shelley sort of way. Though Bill's ability to fight the Cyberman programming does make a little bit of sense. All that time mentally fighting against the monks, coupled with the fact that she was part of the first wave of Cybermen, so they wouldn't have all the kinks of the conversion process fully worked out just then. Honestly, unbeknownst to them, she was probably the mentally strongest patient that they had. I liked Bill coming to realize that she was in fact a Cyberman, with the mirror shuffling back and forth between human and machine. That was some great cinematography. In the end, star-eyed water girl finds Bill and releases her from her Cyberman husk of a body. Bill and companion traveling the stars. It's a little reminiscent of Clara and me in the diner. It's just a different kind of living. But come on, just commit to killing a companion. I sound evil saying that, but I feel like this show needs consequences. I've been saying that this entire season. I feel like Bill keeping parts of her personality, that was fine. But she should have sacrificed herself in order to save the children. It would have been even greater if at the end of the episode, as they were leaving, the other humans were acknowledging her as a human instead of a monster. And then maybe Nardole could have named a school after Bill on the new level, or a cafeteria, get it? But in a lot of ways it was different than Clara's departure, because Clara's was a lot more disjointed. Clara messed up and got herself killed, and then after the fact, it seemed that Moffat wanted to write a way to wibbly-wobbly save Clara, but also still have her die in that fixed point. But also, hey, she's out there in this little tiny slice of a second. Ha ha ha. It just felt like a Clara cop-out. A Clara out? That's not going to catch on. At least with Bill's departure, there was some sort of connection to a previous plot point. It made pseudo-sense. The only thing worse would have been that the Doctor saved Bill, she's fully human, and then at the end of the episode she decided to leave the TARDIS of her own volition for some reason. Whatever reason, it would have been terrible writing. So I'm glad that she's not 100% human, but starry-eyed water girl said that she could make her human again, so that's open-ended. Moffat wanted this optimistic, hopeful ending, but it just felt like a magic wand. Everything's pretty okay. That should be his slogan. Stephen Moffat, everything's pretty okay. But it makes me think of when Adric died. He was on a freighter with Cybermen and he was killed. They killed off a companion. I mean, he wasn't that popular of a companion, but still, it was a Cyberman story and they killed off a companion. I really wish that that might have possibly happened with Bill. Speaking of Adric, I really wish they would have shown more classic companions during the Doctor's companion montage. I mean, they showed Sarah Jane Smith, but that's because she was in episodes with David Tennant. But I will go as far as to say that Capaldi had some of his best moments as the Doctor in this episode. His careful explanation to Bill about what happened to her, his pleading with the Master and Missy, it was all so heartbreaking. But like I said last week about Stephen Moffat's first halves of season finale being stronger than his second halves, the Master. Unfortunately, the Master and Missy made no real impact on the plot in this episode. They had the Doctor, but then the Doctor immediately changed their plan within 4 minutes of them appearing on screen. And then it became an escape mission, and then they just chilled in this town for a couple weeks before deciding, hey, we're gonna peace out. Then they blast a Cyberman together, the Doctor says, stand with me! They're both like, nah, and that's pretty much it. They just essentially go off to, die. Really. I feel like this episode actually wasted John Sims' amazing reveal only to have him turn out to be not so evil in this episode, but just kind of a moderate jerk. Other than the two suicides, there's no real gripping reason for them to be in the episode. They didn't really add much to the plot of the Cybermen as a whole. Alright, so we know that after this episode, we're probably losing Bill, we're probably losing Nardal, as far as we know. And in a way, Nardal's ending kind of bothers me even more. So he goes up a few levels and saves some humans, but the Cybermen are still coming. His story can't possibly be over. So maybe this was done to give the new showrunner, Chris Chibnall, the ability to go back and revisit their situation. And if Chibnall wants to leave that story well enough alone, it could be like a Martha Mickey sort of situation where they're fighting battles but off camera. Say what you will about Nardal, but after a few episodes he was really starting to grow on me, and it was really nice having a non-human companion for a while. But in almost every episode there was something alluding to Nardal's mysterious past, which at this point of his character arc ending, we still don't really know much about. But the ending of the episode with the Doctor's regeneration slowly creeping up on him, which has been teased in almost every single episode this season. 12 goes as far as to say 9, 10, and 11's final lines before stuffing his regeneration in the snow and force closing it, I guess. And then, like we talked about last week, the first Doctor shows up, played by David Bradley. Speaking of things I've previously brought up, I brought up this months ago. But what if these two halves don't end up getting along too well? Remember what I said earlier about how meeting Missy might influence the Master's time stream? Well, what if the Master wants to take something too far and Missy doesn't agree with his endgame? What if Missy is the cause of the regeneration which births her? Boom! Got him. So many people told me that it wouldn't make sense for Missy to cause her own regeneration, but there you go. But it was heartbreaking to see that as she was on her way to the Doctor's side, she won't ever make it. The Master did say something to her about not trying to regenerate because he gave her the full brunt of the blast and presumably her regeneration wouldn't work, but I don't think that this is the last we're going to see of the Master in some form. Gomez is leaving the show, so we knew that something like this was going to happen, but the Master has to go on. Missy will be missed, but here's a thought. We don't explicitly know that Missy is the form right after John Sims' Master. That was never explicitly stated. John Sims' Master is presumably going to make it back to his TARDIS and then regenerate into something, possibly Missy, but that's not going to be seen on screen as Michelle Gomez is not going to be on the show anymore. The Master is essentially the Whovian Voldemort. He will always be back. Remember the ring? He was burned to ash and they did some weird seance and brought him back. The Master's ring was like a wibbly-wobbly Horcrux of sorts. The key moment in that scene for me was Missy's laughter. I mean, sure, she could have found it hilarious that there was a double suicide, but she was starting to remember things. Maybe she had always remembered the interaction, but she knew how to play it because she knew how it was going to go. If Missy was able to remember to bring a dematerialization circuit, what's to say that she didn't remember this whole thing going down? The way I see it, Missy knew that Sims' Master was going to shoot her in the back. She was just laughing because he failed to realize that she was going to remember it happening. If she remembered a woman slamming her up against the wall when she was Sims' Master, she would probably remember killing herself, right? But a Missy plot point that still bugs me that they didn't explicitly state was, why did Missy get executed earlier in the season? See, now we know that the Master escapes, regenerates into Missy at some point, and then as Missy is put to death for crimes. But what if those crimes, aside from just regular genocide, was leaving the Doctor to die and also creating the Cybermen? River Song herself was jailed for killing the Doctor, so it would make sense that Missy would get some sort of similar punishment, if not worse. But now with the Dr. Falls ending where it did, we know that his next adventure is going to be with himself, but the first version of himself, unless Moffat wants to throw one more wrench into everybody's clock and say, hey, Hartnell wasn't actually the first Doctor. I highly doubt that that's going to happen, but what if this is actually the scenario where Hartnell talks to Capaldi about going to protect Gallifrey? No, sir, all 13 eyebrows. This season had a lot of high points, but I still sort of wish that Moffat would have passed the reins last year to give Chibnall a chance with previously established characters like 12 and Nardal, just to see the difference between showrunners, because now, if Chibnall's coming along and just having a completely new slate with a whole bunch of new actors and the Doctor with all these new companions, it just would have been nice to see the differences between the way that Moffat and Chibnall would handle the same characters. In the comments down below, let me know your thoughts on The Doctor Falls. Was it everything you hoped it would be, or was it kind of a letdown? Do you wish that Bill would have died in some sort of extravagant fashion, or are you glad that she somewhat survived? I'm a little bit torn. I feel like she should have sacrificed herself in a moment of finality, standing up and doing what she believed in, saving people the way that the Doctor taught her. Except for the whole, you know, dying part. But I feel like it's really difficult for a Cyberman to go on and lead a normal life. Though, how hilarious would it have been if Bill actually became Handles? Okay, I can't actually take credit for that. That was actually in a comment that I think I got last week. I can't find the comment, so I can't give proper credit. But if that was your comment, it was fantastic. It gave me quite a chuckle. Okay, so now we essentially have about 6 months until the Christmas special, so now we wait. I just realized I'll have to think of 6 months of Doctor Who content without any new episodes, but it's fine, I have a plan. As always, my name is Travis, thank you for listening to What I Have to Say, and you will see me tomorrow.